Hello, everyone. This is Marlon Weems, the publisher of the Journeyman newsletter, and I am here with my good friend Danielle Moodie. The damn is it the damn
The
or the
Damn Digest.
DAM?
Yes. Editor of the
Which do
Damn
you
Digest.
prefer?
Huh?
Which do you prefer?
What?
Was it the it's the DA? I mean, I'm assuming your initials, right?
It's my initials. And people are
Now,
like, they're like, those are your initials. It's very, very on the
what,
nose for the kind of
your folks were
copyright.
thinking, they were like, yeah, we're gonna give this child something. So, but you've got other things going on too. You kind of made some recent changes, right? And
Yes. So and thank you for saying that. Yeah, I started on Wednesdays. I do two Substack lives, one at 12 p.m. With my friend Jared Yates Sexton, who is the editor of Dispatches from a
right,
Collapsing State. So we do the check-in on 12 p.m. Eastern on Substack Live, and then my co-host of Democracy Ish and I, Wajahat Ali, who is the editor of The Left Hook here on Substack, we do a show at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is kind of our midweek democracy-ish kind of check-in
mm,
show. We're going to make more culture related and, just a little bit not every single headline. So those are the two new things that I'm doing on Substack that I'm super excited. But you gave me my live start, Marlon. You gave me my live start. I did my
all
first
right,
live
all
with
right.
you. So,
Well, I was happy to do it. Believe me, I've been following you for some time on television. Mostly. I mean, that's kind of where I first became aware of you. But so there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's just Tuesday. I mean, we got, Trump is over there in the Middle East playing like he's president, but we know what he's doing. It's not
hmm
president, and he's over there grifting and
hmm
getting paid. There's like some Bitcoin thing going on
Yep.
underneath. So there's that. And last night, I'm actually writing a piece about this. Hopefully, I'll finish it and have it out this afternoon. Um, I got so I have there are some guys that I um, worked with when I was in New York, and at one point or another, all of them were on a trading desk that I ran,
hmm
different places and stuff, and we still are in touch almost every day. I'm with one of them. I mean, one of them sends me a Bible verse every morning, like text me, and it's like, hey, have a good day, be productive, whatever, just kind of like a little nudge. And then, and we go back and forth, and I call it like, what do I, the Society of Black Ex Traders. And it's like
hmm
five of us, and we're damn near the only black guys that were in that business, at least at the time. Anyway, so he sends me a text last night, and it's just an article from the Wall Street Journal that Republicans had dropped their budget proposal,
Yep.
for the tax, not budget proposal, but tax bill proposal. And I got to looking through it, and I've been talking about it because if you remember, maybe 3 months ago, they like in the dead of night, they slipped out this thing where it was just a wish list. I mean, they were talking about
hmm
mortgage interest, and if your kid gets a grant or a scholarship, they were talking about taxing that and just all kinds of stuff. So have you had a chance to look at it?
I've looked at some of it.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's trash. I think that this bill may be one of the worst tax bills that we've ever seen. And it's just so transparent in its desire to only support the uber wealthy. Like it is there is nowhere that you look and you say, "Oh, we're going to save significant money," or, we're going to make life easier for the working class or, the dwindling middle class. No. Everything is about extending the tax breaks from 2017 that had already added, I think in Donald Trump's first term, what was it? 7 trillion, 7 to 9
Well,
trillion
just
dollars.
the Tax Cut and Jobs Act right off the bat. was like 2.5 trillion to the
Right.
debt. Okay.
So there
Now, in the time since, I don't know, but it's minimally that much. And
it's right.
extending it is because now there, so I did something on it a couple of months ago, and really just the extension of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, that alone is almost $5 trillion.
Right.
Then at the time they were talking about, a number of other different things. No tax on tips,
Mhm.
Social Security. The Social Security part looks like they got that left by the wayside. My guess is that because this is reconciliation, so the parliamentarian, you know, they got to go through whoever that person is to include certain things. So they're doing something different with Social Security, and I want to find out more about it because as a person who's over 65, it actually I was like, huh, it's like they're giving you an additional deduction of like
Mm.
three or four. But that aside, like you said, it is what gets me, and the way I'm writing this piece is it's the okey doke. It's like I'm giving you $5, but I got my hand around in the back taking your wallet.
Yep.
I mean, that's basically what it is. So when you talk about no tax on tips, what you have to consider is who are the people who are, pardon me, I am getting a phone call somehow. I'm supposed to block that out, but I'm popular. Um, who do you know who makes a living on tips that's paying taxes? It's a throwaway. I don't know. I have to look at the numbers, but I think less than like 5% of the workforce, and I have to check my numbers, but it's a very small percentage that even pay taxes of people. We're talking about waitresses, low income people
Yeah.
making less than probably definitely less than 30 grand a year. They're not paying taxes. So you're giving them something, and it really sounds good when you hear it in a sound bite, but it's nothing. And then the other thing, which is interesting, is the deduction on car interest. That is actually something. I'm older than you. I remember when that used to be deductible back in the Reagan era when they did I think it was 1986. They did a big tax reform bill, and at that time they got rid of the deduction. You used to be able to deduct interest on a car loan just like a mortgage loan, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, they're doing it a little bit different, and they've got some, like if you make over a certain amount, you don't get the full, deduction or whatever. But that aside, again, I just kind of looked at, okay, what's the average cost of a car? It's almost 50 grand now. So
Yep.
you figure just take it down 30 grand. So if you got like a 3-year loan, 30 grand, I mean, I just kind of ballparked it. Maybe you're paying 2 grand a year in interest. You get to write off some of that. But we got these tariffs over here that are going to make your car cost more. So what the
Correct.
that and it only lasts for 3 years. See, it's almost like a teaser rate with poor folks. They're giving all of these little things that sound like they're good, but you only get them for 3 years, and then the stuff that benefits rich folks is
There
forever.
correct.
It's forever.
So the extension that they want to do for the tax breaks for the uber wealthy that added the trillions of dollars worth of debt
Mhm.
back in 2017, they don't it's not even that they just want to extend that. They want to make it permanent.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So they want to make it permanent that the uber wealthy basically don't pay taxes. They're
that
going
is
to
correct.
lower their percentage, I think, to like 22, 21, like something that is just astronomically low. As a solo entrepreneur, right? My tax rate is over 30%.
Same.
As a self-employed person that is a LLC of one, right?
Hmm.
It has a tax rate of over 30%. And you're talking about people that are making 500,000 plus individuals that have a tax rate in the 20s, right? Like it makes absolutely no sense. And I always think about this. I'm just like, you know, the ability, like it was Lyndon B. Johnson who said, if you can teach the poorest white man that he's better than the best black man, you can pick his pockets. And if you can, like that quote just sits with me all the time because these middle income and poor white folks that vote against their best interests on a regular basis, that will vote to deport immigrants that actually pay taxes
Hmm.
while they celebrate and idolize the
And
billionaires
paying the
that
Social
don't.
Security that they're never going to get.
Right. And it's just like, it's extraordinary to me that they are so, now the Republican Party is just so naked in their grift and in the desire to just create and solidify an oligarchy in this country that, like, no one cares anymore. They don't, because they have, and what I mean by nobody cares, I mean that those that are in the Republican Party that are like, "Oh, I don't know if my constituents will go along with this." They don't care about their constituents because they have no intention of having free and fair elections. So if you are concerned, right, like about being reelected, then this would not be a bill that you would vote on because it's going to hurt the very people that put you in office. But what I realize is these Republicans, Donald Trump said it on the campaign trail, they have no intention for people to be able to vote again, right? And if you are voting, your vote really is not going to matter. So they're able to jam forward Donald Trump's quote unquote agenda to make the wealthy even wealthier while killing jobs, taking away social safety nets, and making the burden of taxes even greater on middle and lower income workers.
And passing stuff like, what is it, the SAVE Act?
Yeah.
Um, and where I am, I'm in the South. It is so perfectly, and I'm in North Carolina. And if you recall, I don't know, maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago when a judge said that the gerrymandering was like with surgical precision in
Mhm.
North Carolina, and the Supreme Court just let it fly anyway, right? I mean, but it is almost an impossibility for well, look what just happened with our Supreme Court judge that
How hard you
just
had to fight
the guy literally just conceded last week.
from
Last week
November.
from the November election. He was trying to get 60,000 votes thrown out.
Yep,
60,000.
yep.
In fact, and this is crazy. I believe her name's Allison Riggs, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's her name. He was even trying to get the votes of her parents thrown out. I mean, he had this just, huge pile of votes that he had targeted, military votes, and it was like people who had not it was so ridiculous, like had not signed something in the right place or just some little minor technicality, but there was no question about whether the vote was valid or not. He
Yeah,
was
and he
just
just
looking
didn't it
for.
wasn't a vote for him.
Thank you, Jules. It's Allison Riggs. So yeah, so she's finally, I mean, but the only other time I can think about something like that, and I'm sure it's happened, but Al Franken kind of comes to mind. There was a situation like that. I guess it was right after Obama originally got elected, I think. But they don't, if you have good policies, you want people to vote.
Right.
I mean,
But
that pretty much says it.
yeah, but the fact is that it has been, I don't know, probably a campaign since Black people and women, won the rights to vote, that that there has been a concerted effort by the Republican Party to pick their voters rather than their voters picking their representatives. And having, I mean, when you think about that, that SAVE Act, right,
Hmm.
would disenfranchise, I think, it was 69% of women who get married change their last name. And for those that don't know, like the Republican Party is pushing a piece of legislation that would say that your license or the government identification, your passport has to match your birth certificate, right? And 69 or 70% of women who get married take on their partner's last name. So your birth certificate is going to have your maiden name, and your social security card, your other identification is going to have your married name.
So I
And
got one for you. And you see that again, person over 65. My mother remarried when I was 2. Back then, just started calling myself Weems. That's all I've ever known. But that's not what's on my birth certificate. There's a different last name on my birth certificate. Folks didn't go to court and do all the. You just were who folks said you were. I've always been Marlon Weems, right? Everything, birth, social security, driver's license, it's never been questioned until after 9/11, and I was in New York. I had a little difficulty, but it basically was, I forget how I dealt with it. I think I had to get like an affidavit or of some sort. I had to go through a little
mhm.
bit, but you wouldn't even be able to do that in this case. And
No,
in fact, I'm going to have to really go to some trouble to correct that in order to get
the real
the
ID.
real ID. I
Yep,
don't have it yet.
yep.
So it's not just women. I mean, you just figure people of a certain age that grew up, especially in the South. You're 2 years old and mom gets remarried, then that dude, that's your daddy, that's your
Hmm.
last name. So yeah, it's now what is the status of that? Is it like a federal law that we're talking about? So
Yes, because
where is that in the
so
process?
the last it passed the House by on and what killed me about it passing the House a couple of weeks ago is
Oh,
that Democrats actually voted. There were Democrats that voted for this legislation.
why? Did any of them?
I have because Democrats are really good at stabbing themselves in the foot.
We're
You
gonna
know,
talk about that in a minute too.
right. So I do not know. I do not know if it has passed the Senate.
I
Um,
feel like we know
I
if
feel
it
like we
has.
would know, and it would have been a bigger, like a big deal. But yeah, Democrats helped push that piece of legislation over the hump in the House, and it was going up to the Senate. And you know, they had already, in some red states, had already begun, right? Because what the Republican Party does is that they use the states as a petri dish. Let's
Hmm.
see how it will work in this area, what tweaks we need to make, what pushback we get, and then
Hmm.
Trump gets into office and we're going to push it through nationally, which would, when I say disenfranchise, we're talking about tens of millions of people.
Oh yeah,
Like, so,
every married woman, I would assume,
married,
unless
use
they just
kids,
didn't take
like,
their husband's last name.
yeah, just like, I mean, it's extraordinary. And so I'm like, again, Republicans are very clear about their plans and very clear about what they're doing. To me, it's just like, so we're still looking around for Democrats to have any type of reaction and response that is on level with the devastation that's being caused. I mean, Marlon, it's only been 3.5 months. I still cannot wrap my mind around how much has been destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people pushed out of work. The market, we're watching market manipulation in real time. so the rich can get richer and the poor get poorer and lose their stability in their 401ks and their pensions, all to push people back into an aggressive workforce that gives CEOs and shareholders more control because we've created desperation. Everything that they have done has been about manufacturing desperation and chaos, right?
Hmm.
In order to extol the amount of power and control, right, over people. So it's really it's extraordinary. It's really extraordinary. And I honestly 40% of the population voted for this. And it is just stunning, stunning that 40% of the population would vote so that their kids and grandchildren don't have access to public education, don't have access to clean water and clean air, are going to inherit an earth that is, that is literally melting, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just it's extraordinary the narrowness in thinking, the scarcity intertwined with the hatred and the discrimination, the racism, the misogyny. We're in a wild moment, is all I'll say. I mean, I know that you're over 65, but I'm like, has there ever been another time in your life where you've looked at this country and been like, well, damn, I don't know if we're gonna make
Listen, I wrote something the other day and I was, just kind of aging myself. I remember sitting on a trading floor when, like, Black Monday, stock market crash. Thought that was the end of the world. It wasn't. And, just down the line to 9/11, I was in New York on a trading desk during that when 9/11 happened. Um, the housing crisis, same thing. Those were kind of almost like, act of God kind of events
right,
in their
right.
own way.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to think about here is we're talking about in the span of 90 to 100 days, these people drove the stock market from its highs into bear market territory and back. I had never seen anything like that. Okay. And I think I would remember it. I mean, you cannot tell me there was not some, forget manipulation. This is like this is like something you see in a James Bond movie,
Yep.
right? I think there was one where, where you're talking about people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, she's just stupid enough to put it out there where everybody can see. But I know I have known Howard Lutnick. I ran a trading desk for almost 5 years that was connected to the brokerage house that he just left. He was a CEO. They owned part of the firm I worked for. So I'm not friends with him. We weren't hanging out in the Hamptons, but I've been around the guy. He's not stupid, but he's talking real stupid when he gets on TV. They have to know this cannot be that, oh, the market's just going to tumble and nobody was like trying to get out in front of that, or the market. Trump literally, I almost said a tweet, whatever you call this crap that he does on his little social media thing.
Mm-hmm.
He literally said, boy, I'd be buying right now if I were you.
Yep.
He's telling people what's up. He's in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East right now, getting a free plane, what, almost a $500 million plane. Over here on the other side, he's got a crypto business with his boys. Saudi Arabia is getting ready to throw, they got these sovereign wealth funds. They're going to dump crypto in. I mean, this is I don't even know what you do about this level of just criminality, because this is James Bond, you know, level stuff,
I don't even want to
but it's
give
for
them
real.
I don't even want to give them credit to
I'm
think
not
that it's
saying they're
that
smart.
it's
I'm just
James
saying
Bond
the
level.
crime
But
itself
yeah,
is so
I'm like,
huge. It's
it's like
just
it's Scooby-Doo level worth of crime, right? Like
yeah,
it's
but where
so
them kids
comical.
at? We,
Yeah,
where the kids at? We
where the
need them
kids
to.
at to rip off the like it's so
It
the
is. It's like it is like you're. It's not well thought out because we
no,
wouldn't know about it if it was for real
right,
James Bond. Only James Bond would be able to like know.
right.
No, you're right. This is slapstick comedy, Scooby Doo.
Yep.
You know, just but still,
Mm-hmm.
these dudes are walking. These dudes are getting rich, richer than rich,
Richer than rich.
and we can't. We don't have the mechanism in place to do anything about it. I heard somebody say the other day that Trump is better at destroying things than we are at creating them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to tell you something else. This Library of Congress, and I know we want to talk about some other stuff. Of course, it's just straight up racism the way they fired the librarian of Congress. But there's something else going on there that think about it. It's the Library of Congress. That's not his branch.
Nope.
How's he firing anybody at the Library of Congress? Oh, he's just firing folks all up and down. I have to be honest, I did not realize until yesterday all of the agencies that are underneath the Library of Congress. The Copyright Office. Hmm, Um, I think I can't, the Congressional Research Service, I think is what it's
Mm-hmm.
called.
CSR. Uh-huh.
That is,
CRS.
I, I saw a stat that just made what they're trying to do right now while we're sitting here talking about it is they're trying to get their Elon Musk team inside the Library of Congress so they can start hoovering up data.
Yeah.
Because in that research service, I read that every time there's a hearing, the Q&A, where they go around,
It
everybody asks
goes
a
into
question,
the record.
it goes into the record. I knew about the library itself being the world's biggest library in terms of maps and books and videos and so on, recordings. But what I did not know is that every congressional hearing, every question anybody in Congress has ever asked,
It's in the record.
and the answer
Mm-hmm.
is there, going back 50 years. So, it's a database. I guess if you're in Congress and you're trying to figure out a position on something and you want to know what people have been saying, that's where you go. And that's what he's basically trying to take over Congress through the Library of Congress. And they're letting him.
It's yes. I mean, like some days I just don't know how to explain this to people. And then when I do find like the most basic level of everything that you have ever known about America, everything that you've ever understood about America is over. And I know that that is really like a difficult place for people to wrap their minds around because you've been able to function inside of a country kind of the way that we function inside of our bodies, which is not ever having to think about our heartbeat and not ever having to think about our breath until
Mm,
something goes wrong.
mm, wow.
And that is exactly where we are with America's democracy, which ended on January 20th. Right? And you have to understand that Donald Trump and the team around him spent the last 5 years, right? And if we're honest, it's actually been going from 2015 till now. So we're talking about 10 years that they have spent going through and figuring out how can we rewind the clock to the 19th century where white cis hetero men had all the power and there was no policy that would say otherwise? How do we do this? How do we go through agencies to erase Black presence and excellence, to erase women, to erase other people of color, right? How do we go through and literally what began as alternative facts, right, from Kellyanne Conway,
Mm-hmm.
has created an entire alternate ecosystem and universe that MAGA operates inside of. And now they have the keys to all of our agencies to remake America in their image, which is what I, along with you, and I'm so uncertain of so many others, tried to tell people that that was the plan of Project 2025. It was the re-whitening of America and the reimagining of America through the lens of the wealthy, white, cis, hetero man that wants to solidify power for another century plus, right? And 40% of the population said that sounds like a good idea. Why? Because we can unify against the fact that we don't like this demographic shift. I don't like DEI. I don't like X, Y, and Z. So you take the lowest common denominator, which was racism and misogyny, right? You amp that up, and then you're able, as Lyndon B. Johnson said, to pick their pockets for free, right? Because what white people and people of power have always organized around is racism and misogyny. That is the link. That is the theme. And so when you sit back and you're looking at the Library of Congress, you're looking at the IRS, you're looking at Social Security, Medicaid, you're looking at public education, you're looking at all of these spaces that have only seen, Marlon, 60 years of equity. We're looking at 60 years that women have been able to be financially independent, right? Women didn't have access to financial independence until
Oh, you
1974.
had to get your husband's
You
approval to
had to
open a
get
bank
your
account.
husband or your father's approval in order to get a credit card, to get a mortgage, to all of those things. People don't understand that. It was 1974. That was a Supreme Court case that then coincided with Roe v. Wade, right? That would give women full bodily autonomy and financial autonomy. They are coming for both of those things. And so when we look at the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, you're looking at 60 years of America's 250 years almost, 60 years of progress that they are wiping out in a matter of months. And that to me is like, it's extraordinary. But the damage that Donald Trump and this regime is doing, if let's say their reign is only, let's say it's only 10 years, right? Because Donald Trump has no intention of leaving. They have no intention of letting Donald Trump leave, and that's the other thing. But let's say Donald Trump's reign is roughly what that was of Hitler. You're talking about
Mm-hmm.
generational damage. In our lifetimes, we are not going to see America climb its way out of this. We are being pushed into a dark ages that is going to last for generations.
Yep. Yep. And when you think about it from, well, just think about what has happened in terms of just globally. Other countries have just said, okay, see ya. And they're moving on without us.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make another point, just to what you just, I mean, I don't think people realize, and I say this a lot, I did not go to school with white people for most of my education. I did not, or my, pre-college. I did not go to school with white people by law until 19 until I was in the 7th grade. So 1970. 1970. not 1870. I ain't that old, but 1970 was the first time I sat in a classroom with people who did not look like me. And when I used to work in New York, I would tell guys this, and they would, oh, they thought I was playing. They just, because you got these young people that all they've ever known is the good part.
Yep.
They don't know anything about when I was in high school. I was living in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. They still had a segregated boys club
Mm.
that was getting United Way money, but was segregated. And on the black side of town, and they literally called it the White Boys Club. When we moved to that town, I was dumb. I thought it was like a guy named whose last name was White. Cause I was like, really? Yeah, the White Boys Club. And they had a Black Boys Club. And the Black Boys Club, had goals with no nets and, the on a asphalt all, broke up and nothing. And the White Boys Club was rocking. Okay. And the high school I went to had a golf team. Well, where you play golf? At the country club that I couldn't go to. Tennis team at the segregated country club. That's where they practice. I didn't even know we had a golf team and a tennis team till I got my first yearbook. Okay. This is in the 70s, people, in the 70s. Now, I mean, I just don't think people grasp
Mhm.
how close that is to where we are right now. It's not that far away. What's that, 50 years ago? A little
Yes.
over? You know, it's
It's
not,
a little
it's
over 50
not
years
that
ago.
long ago. Okay. My dad decided that he was going to sue the boy over the boys club. So he had to have been harmed in order to sue. So he took me and my three brothers to the boys club, join the white boys club. And we walked in there and all our little high school and junior high school friends, they're playing ping pong and shooting pool. Everybody stopped what they were doing. And I'll never forget. Now, my dad, I'm a pretty big guy. My dad was 6'6", almost 300, not a small guy. And a little kid who probably was 15 walked up and was talking to my father like he was a grown man. What y'all need? And, my dad's, we're here to join. And this little boy started laughing at us. And he said, y'all know y'all can't join here. Get out of here. That's what happened. That's in the 70s. I was in like probably 1974, 1975. So America has not been what it's never been what it was supposed to be, but it sure as hell ain't been what everybody thought it was for that long. So I'm
No,
just
and
saying.
yeah, and I think that that story is so important because what is reflected back at us in what would be our history books and textbooks, and you're looking at black and white photos. And the thing about black and white imagery, right? Even though, you see Martin Luther King and you see him in black and white, and there was color, right? There was
Mm-hmm.
technicolor then.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to understand too that that was done purposefully,
Yeah.
right? These black and white
To
photos
make it
were
appear that it
were
was in
it was to make
the
it
ancient
appear
times.
as if it was, 100 years ago, right? And so you want to talk about creating your own reality and ecosystem. The reality was created that we have made so much progress and there's so much time
With post-racism.
in between what you were naming that happened in 1974 and what we are experiencing now. And it was like, oh, we have overcome blah blah blah. And my whole thing around America's like original sins is the fact that America has always wanted to break its arm, patting itself on the back without actually acknowledging the wounds that are still present. America has always wanted to leapfrog. Look at us. We got a black president. Look at us. We have, these things, and we're post-racial and wanting to think that we were going to just continue to celebrate progress without actually grappling with our history. And because we haven't grappled with our history, we're repeating it.
We
And
have no foundation.
that has always been the goal. Like,
Hmm.
white Republicans never had any goal of anything other than regression. Right? So they've been sitting not idly by for the last 50 years. They've been planning for the last 50 years. So if you can't see it, you can't achieve it. Donald Trump says we're doing away with all of these historical markers that acknowledge women's achievements, Black people's achievements, blah, blah, blah. We're going to rewire how education and curriculum looks at West Point and and in these different places, so that you don't know that indigenous people worked on the coding that allowed for, success in different military projects. Like, we're going to
Code
do
talkers.
right. We're going to do all of these things so that that it is white men and straight white men alone that have advanced America, and everyone else is being put back in their place. And to think that, oh my God, we've made so much achievement. Well, to be honest, Marlon, you're in the South, and I'm certain that there are schools that say that they've been integrated since Brown versus the Board of Education that have not been integrated,
Let me tell you
right?
something. My daughter just graduated from college this last weekend. I've got a son at NC State. He'll be a sophomore. So during COVID, they were in high school. The high school they went to is in a county that at the time was about 23% Black, and that school was 3% Black. No Black teachers. There were more Asian kids at that school. I'm in North Carolina now. There were more Asian kids at that school than there were Black kids. And it was something to deal with. It was a decent school, of course. They had the resources, of course. The Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. 3% Black in North Carolina. It was like a big old private school was how it functioned. They had my daughter, she's a creator. She's got a degree in studio art. In high school, she was in theater. They literally tried to do, I can't think of the name of the play. They tried to do a play. It's a musical, and the name escapes me. Somebody don't know, but there's a song in it, Run and Tell That. Okay. Hairspray. They tried to do Hairspray, and they canceled it because my daughter was the only Black person in theater. And there was a song that called for a duet. It's clearly something that a person of color needs to be singing it. So a white kid could not sing this song with her. They just said, you know what, we ain't gonna do this play. We can't do it because Hallie's the only Black kid. We don't have another kid to sing with her. You got a choir right down the hall full of Black kids. Did they go? Got a Black church a half a mile away. So they just decided we just won't do that play. She tried out for roles, leading roles. They're not gonna have her being Lady Macbeth with the white boy over here. We're talking about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago. Now, of course, I think my kid's a good actress. Well, I'll tell you this. She left that school and then went over to Wilmington, University of North Carolina at Wilmington, got involved in, community theater productions. And she's getting nominated for Best Actress. She's getting nominated for Best Newcomer. More than several times. So that tells me it's not because she wasn't a good actress.
Right.
They just wasn't having that.
Yeah.
So there you go. We're not talking about 50 years ago. We're talking about 5 years ago.
And I mean, this is why I think, storytelling and conversation is so important, because without it, you can be lulled into this place of the lies that America has created, into the gaslight of exceptionalism, into the gaslight of excellence, into the gaslight of, oh, look how far we've come, right? Oh, look how many Black millionaires there are and Black billionaires. But like, yet you can still tell a child's life expectancy and success rate based on their zip code, right? You can
Yep.
still look at the gerrymandering that has been done, and in places that have, let's say, 60% Black population, but have no representation of their state and local government that are Black folks, right? Like, you can look at places that, Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, where like we're still looking for clean water, right? And
You
they're
know,
having, and
didn't the UN, like, I don't know, maybe
yes,
6 or 7 years ago come here
yes.
down in the South, and they're finding hookworms and all kind of stuff in the
And
water
finding things
supply.
that you find in developed countries,
Yeah, and
right?
we got
But
mad at them.
concentrated in Black areas and and densely populated with people of color. And so, you look around, and I have said this, Marlon, that a part of me truly does believe that, to an extent, and so there are some people, who think the opposite, but I will say this, to an extent, that Donald Trump and MAGA was necessary, because America has wrapped itself very well and tightly in lies. In lies that America has been leading the world in what? Poor education, poor like life expectancy, poor health outcomes. Like, what do we actually lead the world in? And when you look at, oh, America is the world's democracy, and yet you're telling a story of 5 years ago that has to do with your daughter, not in her ability of achievement, but just in literally being judged and disallowed from participating fully in her education because she is Black. So it's like, you hear these things and you see them, but now, again, I go back to the House bill. Now it's so naked. Now
Hmm.
it's just so transparent. Now there's no trying to make this something that it's not. It is exactly what you think that it is. It is bringing in 49 South Africanas to be resettled in the United States as refugees because they were done wrong in apartheid South Africa, but
Because
you're going to
somebody wanted their
disallow.
land back.
Right. Because you're going to disallow actual refugees from Syria, from Haiti, from Sudan, and from Afghanistan and other places because you don't want Black and brown people in this country. Like, you can't pretend and lie anymore that any of this is anything other than anti-woman, anti-Black, anti-immigrant, anti-gay, anti-trans. Like, it is what it is, and they're not pretending. So for us to figure out how we survive in this time, that's like the goal. It used to be we wanted to thrive. Now I'm saying the water is up to here and we're just trying to survive. And what does that look like at a time when white nationalism has an accelerant in the White House, has an accelerant on the Supreme Court, right? When everyone is being dragged backwards, you have to really think to yourself, what is it going to take for us as a collective, not us as individuals, but as a collective, to survive this time? Because I don't think it's going to be just 4 years. I think that it's going to be a considerable amount of time. And it's so hard for people to wrap their minds around it, but that's where we are.
Well, I think to that point, if Trump left the scene today, I don't think a whole lot would change. I mean, he was the accelerant, as you put it, that just really, or sort of pulled the scab. No, I'm mixing my metaphors, but pulled the scab off. So we could see how bad the soil was, right?
Mhm.
One thing, so we got about 5 or 10 minutes left. I, with everything that we talked about, what we haven't talked about is what Democrats are going to do about it.
Yeah.
Because, and specifically, and you probably know about this, you know, I was really encouraged when people like Malcolm Kenyatta and David Hogg got pulled into the party apparatus. And then now I'm seeing that there's an effort to get them to either make them resign or push them out. And I don't know. Well, I put it this way. What I'm hearing is this, that they're being pressured to sign a neutrality sort of agreement, that they're not going to, sort of tip the scale. And what they're trying to do is stop David Hogg, who's got a bit of a war chest, from what I can tell, of money that he's raised. And they're trying to get him to not try to primary
Mhm.
these folks. Some of these Democrats that we don't even know who they are. And then suddenly they show up and somebody's trying to put them in charge of a committee, right? But isn't that exactly what Democrats did to Bernie?
Mhm.
And I wasn't even for Bernie, in particular, because I didn't think he could win. But I'm just saying, isn't that, I mean, we know that's what Democrats did. They tried to minimalize him. And so now that the shoe is on the other foot, so to speak, where you've got some young and look, our problem is young people do not believe these folks. Young people are not trying to hear from Charles Schumer. They're not trying to hear from Nancy Pelosi. They're just not. But though they don't believe, they are still searching for this moderate Republican that voted for Obama. It's like some fool trying to get a girl back that quit him 20 years ago. I don't understand this. So tell me what you think about it.
Yeah, I will say there is a quote that I will butcher from Martin Luther King that said that the greatest stumbling block to progress in this country is the white moderate.
Mhm. Yes, I've heard
And
that.
that is entirely what the Democratic establishment is filled with, right? It's filled with people that keep telling you to wait, that keep saying that now is not the time. That, oh, instead of recognizing why did we lose? Right? I mean, I think that there are a host of reasons why we lost the 2024 election, but like it wasn't because we leaned into progressive values, right? It was because we were too busy trying to chase around the Republicans that felt left behind in the MAGA movement, and instead of doubling down on what the base of the party actually needs and wants, which is progressive values, and from people that are desperately um, connected to progressivism and are not just performing, right?
Mhm.
That then you get. What was the Democrats' response? Let's put up Elise Stefanik from what's her face, the moderate, to be the rebuttal to Donald Trump, right? This woman goes up, and
Oh,
not
oh
Elise
yeah,
Stefanik. What
yeah,
is her
right,
name?
right, right, right. I know who you're
What
talking about.
what is her name? I can't think of it. Not Stefanik, because that's
Swans,
the
Swansbury? No.
no.
I know who you're talking about. She's what, Illinois, somewhere up in the Midwest,
Yeah,
ex-CIA. But I know who you're talking about.
yeah.
Slotnick, Slotnick. Thank you,
Slotnick,
Jules.
thank you.
Slotnick.
Jules, you always come in handy.
Yeah,
Slotnick, thank
yeah,
you. Shelley as well. So Slotnick, they offer her up, Elise Slotnick, right?
right.
So they offer up Elise Slotnick as the person to be the rebuttal to Donald Trump, who is an aggressive centrist, who literally have said that the problem with the Democratic Party is quote unquote wokeness, and that we
Hmm.
need to be alpha dogs and we need to do like all of these things. And I'm just like, are you insane? How do you not read the room? How do you not get it? right? And so that is exactly what Democrats do. And so David Hogg has said, look, I want a primary Democrats in safe districts. He's not saying let us blow things up and go in with progressivism into red districts that we're trying to turn purple. He's saying no. If you are sitting in a safe district, but you actually aren't doing anything for the people and you're not doing anything to advance progressive values, then you're out. Right? And I see absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the establishment Democrats, they benefit from incremental and slow walked change, right? Because they get to sit around and pretend that they are for the people. There is no difference to me between the white moderate and the MAGA Republican. One will tell you to your face and call you the N word. The other one is just going to politely say it behind your back. Right? But they both have the same, it's two sides of the same coin. And so for me, I'm like, I would rather you just call me, say what it is that you feel to my face, rather than tell me that you're on my side, but you vote along and in lockstep with white supremacy. So for me, I'm like, David Hogg and Malcolm Kenyatta saying, you know what? The Democratic Party needs a grand excavation of
Mm-hmm.
the white moderate and the status quo. These people have got to go. They've been collecting government checks for 30, 40 years and have not a goddamn thing to show for it, but the same slogans they've been using. Right? And I'm
That's
like,
it.
I'm done. And personally, I'm done. Right? I don't think Kamala Harris did not lose, right, that race. She was told you need to stay center and don't let people know that you're too black or too Asian or too much of a woman,
Or
right?
two female. Really?
We're giving you 107 days to go do what everybody else has been tasked with doing over 2 years, right?
That's it.
We're giving you 107
And
days.
now they're
So
telling her, why don't you just run for governor?
right,
Did
and
nobody
and
tell Joe
just
Biden
right,
three times?
to go take a lesser position. So my feeling is that the Democratic Party is in a space of reckoning, and it isn't just because of what Republicans have done, it's because of what they've allowed Republicans to do by not reading the room and thinking that they are still in the 20th century of negotiations in back rooms over scotch. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And both parties laughing at all of us, right? As they go collect their money and collect their checks. So I'm sorry. I know that we are out of time, but you asked me about the Democratic Party
No,
and
I
I
know.
will go
Look,
off on a tangent.
well, you know what that means. That means we got to do it again,
Yes.
and soon. Well, folks, there it is. So, what I always do is I will, give me a day or two, and I'll have a unpaywalled recording of this, and I'll drop some articles and try to, some stuff that we talked about in there. And if you haven't already, become a subscriber. And if you like what you're hearing and want to support it, I mean, we are truly independent journalists. So we need your help to sustain. And it's going to be tough the next couple of years.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, it'll only be the next couple of years. So, all the support you can provide, we appreciate it. And Danielle, I'm gonna be DMing you. When can we do this? Let me get on your calendar. So thank you
Yes.
so much for joining me. And folks, we'll end it here and see you on the other side. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.